Hi darlings! I just wanted to talk about mental health. It's a subject very close to my heart. As you know, I've struggled with addiction and depression for over 20 years. And something happened to me when I was very young at 13. It was so traumatic that it really was a life-changing event. And basically I was in Hong Kong with my mother and we'd just flown out there. And I had this dream in the middle of the night that I'd killed her with a pair of scissors. My mother was my absolute world. She was everything to me. She was the love of my life. She was the most amazing mother. She is the most amazing mother. I absolutely cherished her with every fibre of my body. My dad was away travelling a lot, and he lived in different countries. And so when I woke up the next morning and found out that my mum told me, "Oh darling, you walked into my room last night and you asked where the scissors were." I have never been so frightened in my entire life. I couldn't sleep in the same room as her for I don't know how many years. I couldn't sleep in the same house as her or the same flat or anything, because I'd always be so scared to go to sleep that I think that literally I'd be waking up to a bloodbath the next morning. I was so frightened, and I didn't tell a soul for 10 years because I literally thought everyone would think I was crazy and I'd be sectioned, and I was so fearful, and it ruined my life and dragged a massive wedge between me and my mum because I was so scared of hurting her that I pushed her away so much. I wanted her as far away as possible. When she'd come and pick us up from boarding school, I'd literally sit like this in the car while she was driving because I just didn't want to harm her. And then I'd spend the whole time at home just panicking and worrying that when I went to sleep that night, I would kill my mother. And that's pretty much where my addiction started. My sister and I were also sexually abused by our driver when we were very young, when we lived in Singapore. And when I was 21, I'd obviously blocked it out because I only remembered when I was 21. I said to my sister, "Do you remember what John used to do to us?" This was our driver in Singapore. And she was like, "Oh my God." And, he covered it up by saying it was a magic trick. And I never really thought it affected me. But I think any kind of abuse affects you from such a young age. And it made me sexually aware from a very, very, very young age. So that combined with this dream that I had, I became incredibly rebellious because I was so scared of myself. I was so frightened of me, and I started partying at 15 years old. I so looked forward to the times that I was going back to boarding school so I'd be away from my mother so I couldn't harm her. It messed me up so badly, and then I went to my first rehab when I was 21, and I finally told her when I was 23, and she just laughed. And obviously, it didn't matter that she laughed, but the fact that it had been such a huge burden on me, and it drives such a wedge between us because I wanted her as far away as possible. There was one time I remember that was particularly horrendous. We went to go and stay with my godfather in his place in San Jose in Costa Rica for 2 weeks. And I arrived at the apartment, and me and my brother and sister were staying in their son's room. And there was 2 axes hanging on the wall. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. I was so frightened that I would harm my mother. It petrified me. I literally was so scared of myself. And the only release I could find was turning to alcohol and being rebellious and just trying to, move myself as far away from my mum as possible. So that I held on to for years, and it messed me up so badly. And, like I said, I went to my first rehab when I was 21. I only managed to stay sober for 10 months, and then I met my future husband, the father of my children, who, that's a different story. But obviously, as people know, I haven't seen my children for 2.5 years, and coming up to 3 years in August. And it is something that I cannot express the pain. The pain is unbearable and hits you at, any time throughout the day. So like if a song comes on the radio that we used to sing to, or a television program comes on that we used to watch together, I have to turn over. I can't look at it. The pain is excruciating. If a mum and her teenage son are walking down the street, or a mum and her daughter are shopping or having lunch together, it is a knife through my heart. It's the most painful experience, and that I have no control over it. And I've been sober now. A lot of people do ask me, how do you cope, being sober and going out with all your friends and everything. The easy thing is putting down the drink and substance abuse. That's the easy bit. The hard bit is dealing with life on life's terms. And, I'm now single. I've been single for 1.5 years. I just got divorced again 1.5 years ago. I was married to someone who had Asperger's. And he told me every day how fucking shit I was, how I was useless. He would stand over me when I was in my dressing room and said, "You can't wear that out. What the fuck do you think you look like?" He would never celebrate any of my successes, so I didn't have any. He hated all my friends. He was so negative. The anxiety I held when he came into the room made me absolutely I was just so fearful all the time and felt worthless and useless, and I had no confidence. And as soon as I left him, I landed a role on Ladies of London. I then started up my own boots line, and the best thing I ever did was open up on Ladies of London. That was the best thing I ever did to help with my depression, to help with my situation that I've been in, to tell the world the truth about me. It's about knowing that you're not alone. And sometimes you can say, "Oh, well, that doesn't really help, not knowing that I'm alone," because you do feel very alone when you're in this place. But as I tried suicide, and thank God I didn't die. I thank God every day. I wasn't in the right mind. I was in such a dark place. I never saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but I was actively using at the time as well. And I was in full-blown addiction, the worst of my life. So I couldn't see the wood for the trees. And, going to Arizona, Cottonwood in Arizona, the rehabilitation center saved my life. It completely changed the way that I look at addiction. And I was told that addiction is because you're in pain and you want to escape from it. I relapsed because I was so full of shame still. But in Arizona, I was told, it's not your fault, all your feelings are valid, and they gave you the tools. They are 20 to 30 years ahead in America of dealing with addiction and mental health. And it changed my life, and it was like I could forgive myself for my past as long as I learned to lay my head on my pillow every night with humility and not wake up with humiliation the next day. And I am so happy to say that I'm now over 2.5 years sober. I've always been with a man since I was 15 years old, so I've never had to deal with anything like that. It might sound very, very childish and very, very, embarrassing that at 43, I still love hearing comments like never spend more than you earn, and things like, oh, if you have money, only spend what you have after you've saved. Things like that are really powerful to me and very, very helpful. And, I'm not ashamed of the fact that I, love learning about finances and how to look after myself and taking care of myself, because I don't want to run into the arms of another person again to save me, either emotionally securely, which they never did anyway, or financially security. So I do get days where I feel really depressed and things, aren't going my way or whatever, and I want to just hide. And the worst thing is isolating. But one of the most amazing things about Costa Rica was that, I was very, very down there. I was on antibiotics. I felt really isolated, really, really alone. And doing things like the surfing and abseiling down waterfalls gave me such a zest for life, a joie de vivre, and it was living in the moment. And the thing is, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future, and all you have to do is live in the present, because doing the best you can right now is all you are in control of. You're not in control of anything else. So things like, abseiling down waterfalls and surfing, you are living in the moment, and it's exhilarating. And I found that things like that really, really, really helped with my depression. It would just completely knock it out of the park. I'm a very giving person, and I'm always advising people on relationships, I've always been that person that people come to for advice. and I'm not so good at reaching out and asking for it. And sometimes I get so overwhelmed that I just want to turn my phone off and not reply to anything or anybody. And I really work through that now. I force myself to go out. I make sure my days are filled with business meetings, or working on my YouTube, or whatever it is. It's exercise helps, obviously. Seeing my friends and family at least once a day really helps keep me grounded, and just because I do open up to them and I can talk to them, and I find that really helps. Also, making sure that you're eating well and enough really helps with depression, because I've noticed if maybe I'm so exhausted from a day that I've missed dinner or whatever, just by accident, the next day I'll wake up feeling really depressed. So I really watch what I eat, and make sure that I eat regularly. I do get very dark days because I feel so helpless and emotional about my children, and it affects me a lot. But I have to pull myself out of it, because I want to be the best mother that I can be when they do finally come back to me. And the only way I can do that is by really helping myself and working on myself. And I do go out there, and I do try and work as hard as I can to be financially independent and to make things happen. And it's really rewarding when things come off, and it's a real compliment. But I never ever thought that I would be able to stay sober for this long. Or I have been sober before. I was sober for 5 years, a year and a half, 10 months. I had sporadic times of it, but nothing like this where I remember how bad it got, and I remember the damage it did to my friends and family, and the damage it did to me, and the damage it did to my children, and I take ownership of that. And I watch people around me, and they can get as drunk as they like, because they don't need, their lives aren't unmanageable. Mine was totally unmanageable. I couldn't get out of bed for days. I got even more depressed and paranoid, even more upset and ashamed, and I take things one day at a time, and it's slow, and it's a work in progress, and I think I'm always going to be a work in progress. But the first step is not picking up that drink or anything else to change the way I feel, and to take as good care as I can of myself. And I want to set a good example to my children, and also I know that my children are going to be incredibly damaged when they do come back to me. And I want to be there to help them through it, because I have been through it all, and I know I can help them. And if I can't help them, I'll find somebody that can. If anyone has any questions or anything they want to ask me, I'm very happy to discuss mental health. It's, like I said, it's a topic very close to my heart. I hope that something I've said helps somebody. And please ask me anything. I don't know if I can help, but I will try. And remember that there are loads of helplines available, just so that someone can listen and you can reach out to them. And there's no shame in it. And we are, it affects depression and anxiety and everything. It affects probably people that you wouldn't even realize, and there is a way out, and suicide is not an option. And not an option, it's just knowing that there is another choice. There's a way of life, and you can pull yourself out of the darkness. Suicide isn't an option. There is life. I'm here to prove it. I am walking, talking, living proof, of someone who tried to commit suicide because things were so bad, who has turned their life around. And it's not easy, and I'm not going to say it's easy, but then no one's life is easy, and they manage to do it sober, and I take inspiration from that. Anyway, I love you all. I wish you all the best.